Bilingual education is when you integrate multiple languages into the school curriculum. So for instance, Spanish and English.
Bilingual education is taking the time to teach students, obviously their native language, but to enhance that and to make it strong, while also teaching them another language that they can be proficient in.
Isn't it when you go to a school and they teach using more than one language, like Spanish or English?
Bilingual education is being able to teach using different languages, so being able to teach in English or Spanish or German.
Bilingual education is where students go to a classroom where two languages are taught at the same time in hopes to make sure the student can come to grips with the curriculum and really get to know it to heart.
Is a complete understanding of the language, culture, and the people of two or more countries that speak different languages.
I think bilingual education is educating kids who speak one language to speak a different language.
I'd say it's learning using two different languages. So I guess I took a Spanish class in high school and we kind of learned what the words meant in English and what the words meant in Spanish, and we're able to have conversations in Spanish as well as English.
Just mixing different languages and allowing children to experience different cultures and different languages in the education system.
Bilingual education is education taught in more than one language.
So bilingual education is where they use both English or the main language in that culture and another language and teach them alongside each other to teach whatever they're teaching.
Where there's two languages involved in the classroom, say English and Spanish. Some students know English, some know Spanish. Well, they both know both languages, but they use different languages at home, and they use two different languages in the classroom.
Students should definitely be taught in the language they speak at home. I think that makes it much easier for them. I also think that it is worthwhile for teachers to try to teach a second language, as the world could be more connected through that.
I don't know, it's interesting. I actually was taught Latin growing up up until 8th grade, and even though that's a dead language, it was so useful for vocab, on the SAT, and still is. As a nursing major, I see all.
For sure, it depends on whatever your native language is. If your native language is English, you're definitely going to learn better in English than if you're all of a sudden taught in Spanish, because you obviously can't communicate that way and don't necessarily comprehend better that way.
Yeah, I think students can learn more or less based on what language the teacher uses. For example, if a student lives in an English household and they use English all the time, they would relate more to English. But if they're talking in Spanish throughout the classroom, then they can grasp pretty well if they know both languages, but they relate more to the language they use at home.
I think they can learn more just because it's not what they're if they're from an English household and they're learning Spanish, they're getting new viewpoints on things and they're learning it in different aspects.
It would be harder for the teacher to focus on two languages instead of one. It is good to have different languages being learned, but I think if one language is being focused on, then the children who aren't familiar with that language, it would make it a little bit more difficult for them. So I think it probably would affect them in certain ways, but at the same time I think it would also help them to grow as well. So I think that could be, I don't know, I think that could have two sides to it. But
Yes, definitely. I think there's some great books out there that, I've read some books where it's English on one page, Spanish on the other page. So it's a great way to learn about the Spanish culture, and also maybe doing some projects where we can learn about Spanish, and not only just Spanish, maybe German or I don't know, any other languages. Learning about those cultures, and I think it's a great way to talk about their holidays or just stuff that's different from our culture, reading books. So that's how I'll try to integrate that in my classroom. And I think it's great for learning about other cultures.
I think it's definitely important to other cultures. Like if you're learning Spanish, about Spanish culture, then Spanish language is important.
Language is a huge part of culture. Language follows culture in every society we know of today. You can't have a culture without your language. They're very integrated.
And so you think that's important in the classroom?
It's very important to incorporate in the classroom, but teachers need to be educated on how to incorporate culture without offending those who consider themselves a part of that culture.
I'd say language is probably the second most relevant thing in culture behind religion. Religion is probably the most prominent thing you think about when you think of cultures. But language is probably the biggest barrier in between cultures, because there's people that live in India and they have a different culture and we can't really communicate with them because we speak different languages.
I loved doing this project. I didn't originally choose this question, but I'm so glad I ended up with it because I love language. I don't know why I didn't choose it. I'm learning sign language right now, and I also learned Spanish in high school, so I love thinking in different languages when I think of words and remembering what I learned about different cultures through the language that I'm learning. And I thought it was so cool that other people had an appreciation for language and culture as well, and what that means in the real world, being able to connect with other people. And the real issue that I had with this interview was that most people didn't really know what bilingual education was, where you have a class and you teach both languages in the class, with the curriculum. Most people are used to the idea of having Spanish classes that you can take so you can learn Spanish, but they're not used to the idea of having both languages in one classroom all the time. And I also thought it was really cool that people could only think of Spanish and German as the two languages that we could use in bilingual education. I think that's because of the region that we live in. Spanish is spoken heavily here because of the immigrants that are around this area, as well as German is probably important because of the amount of engineers at this school, and a lot of people doing automotive or wanting to go abroad and